Welcome to the Deep Dive, the Port City Fence Knowledge Series, where we cut through all the confusion of coastal North Carolina home projects.
So you can spend less time reading Chapter 66 and more time enjoying that beautiful low country life.
Exactly. And today, we're focusing our attention entirely on Leland, North Carolina.
It's arguably one of the fastest growing spots in Brunswick County. I mean, if you've bought a home there recently, you know the area is just booming.
And that brings fantastic new neighborhoods, which, invariably means two things: growth and incredibly complex sets of rules.
That's really the core conflict, isn't it? When you plan a fence project in Leland, you're not dealing with just one set of regulations.
No, you're dealing with two distinct masters. You have the Town of Leland's zoning ordinance, that's mostly in Chapter 66, and then you have your specific homeowners association, or HOA, covenants.
And you have to satisfy both. But the town always has the final say on safety and structure.
Right.
Yeah, the town's rules, they start from this simple premise that fences are generally treated as what they call accessory structures.
Okay, so like a shed or a detached garage?
Precisely. And that designation immediately makes rules like Section 66229, which governs placement and setbacks, absolutely critical to understand from the get-go.
Setbacks. So for our listeners who might not be building veterans, that just means the minimum distance your fence has to be from the property line, right?
Exactly.
So let's jump straight to the administrative hurdles. Before a single post hole is even planned, what's the very first thing the Town of Leland requires?
It's the zoning permit. And this is completely non-negotiable.
Ah.
A zoning permit is required for all residential fences in Leland. It's the document that proves your plan complies with all the location, height, and setback rules. It's really step one.
So the zoning permit is the mandatory baseline, okay? But, permits can get confusing fast. What about a building permit? That sounds like the part that might change depending on the project.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's the big "it depends" section.
Right.
Based on the town summaries, they draw a pretty clear line for commercial properties.
Yeah.
If a commercial fence is 6 feet tall or less, and it's made of standard stuff like wood, vinyl, chain link, it typically does not require a building permit.
Okay.
But if it's commercial and over 6 feet or made of some other material, then yes, you absolutely need that permit and the inspections that come with it.
That makes sense for a business.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the dividing line for the average homeowner just trying to fence in their backyard?
And here is where our deep dive into the source material, it revealed a pretty significant ambiguity.
Really?
Yeah, the exact height that triggers a building permit for a standard non-masonry residential fence is not explicitly detailed in the town's public-facing summaries or FAQs.
Wow.
We know the category exists because residential fences requiring a building permit is listed right there on the fee schedule. But the actual height that triggers that $75 minimum fee, it's missing.
That's a huge piece of missing information. A homeowner could so easily guess wrong on that.
Oh, absolutely.
You assume you don't need one, but maybe the town says anything over 5 feet does, and boom, you're looking at a stop work order.
Exactly. And this is why that professional coordination is so critical in Leland. You have to confirm that height trigger. Same goes for any masonry wall, by the way, residential or commercial.
So those are always flagged for special review.
Always, regardless of height. The one crystal clear exception is a pool barrier. That's always permitted and inspected as part of the overall pool permit because it's governed by the strict NC Residential Building Code.
So once you figure out which permits you need, how do you actually interact with the town? The bureaucracy can be a little daunting.
Sure. Applications are usually submitted through the town's online portal. It's called the Evolve Public Permitting Service.
Okay.
And we mentioned the fees. Residential building permits start at a $75 minimum, commercial at $100. And critically, those fees are often calculated based on linear footage.
And nothing stops a project faster than trying to navigate a new municipal website and calculate linear foot fees at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
You're trying to plan your yard, not pass a geometry test.
It's a real administrative headache, just dealing with that Evolve system, making sure the site plan is formatted correctly, understanding the calculations, and getting that initial verification from the planners that your design is even allowed. That takes hours.
And this is a perfect example of why having an expert matters. This is where Lisa, our permits and town coordination pro at Port City Fence, just takes over. She speaks their language. She handles the entire Evolve submission, checks the fee calculations, and gets that crucial initial verification. It frees our clients from that trap.
Getting the paperwork right the first time is often the difference between starting your project next week and starting it, next month.
Let's shift to the physical rules, height and placement. We already know the building permit height is murky, but are there any clear maximum fence heights defined in the Leland summaries?
Believe it or not, no. General maximum or minimum fence heights for any yard, front, side, rear are not clearly specified in the available summaries.
That is the biggest missing rule for a homeowner.
Yeah.
In most other towns, that's rule number one.
Hey, no, it means every single homeowner has to proactively verify their max height with a planner before they even start designing the fence.
That is just baffling. So someone could default to a standard 6-foot privacy fence, but they have no actual guarantee that height is okay in their neighborhood without asking first.
Precisely. Now, we do have a few specific height rules. For a child daycare center, there's a 4-foot minimum around any outdoor play area, which makes perfect sense for safety.
Of course. And then there's that strange conditional rule about a 6-foot fence that pops up in the accessory structure rules, section 66229.
Right. It's a very nuanced trade-off. If you have a shed or something and you set it back between 5 and 10 feet from your property line, then the town requires a fence that's not less than 6 feet high be installed between that shed and the lot line.
So the town is basically saying if you use that 5-foot setback exception for a structure, you have to install a privacy buffer for your neighbor.
Exactly. So it confirms 6-foot fences are definitely allowed, but often only under a very specific set of conditions.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about materials and looks. What if a homeowner wants to do something a little different?
Well, the common materials, wood, vinyl, chain link, are pretty standard. Masonry, as we said, requires a special review. If you're thinking about unconventional materials, maybe composite panels or decorative metal, you absolutely need to get prior approval from the planning department before you order anything.
And here's the classic neighbor question. What about the finished side? Where the good side has to face out. What does Leland say?
This is another one of those critical areas where the regulations were just not found in the documents we reviewed.
You're kidding.
Nope. The lack of a clear rule on which side has to face out is just a recipe for neighbor disputes. If the town doesn't mandate it, maybe the HOA does. And if you don't have an HOA...
You better have a nice long chat with your neighbor before you start digging.
You better! It's about building goodwill along with the fence.
Totally. So let's talk location against setbacks. We know the rules are based on accessory structures. What are the basics for side and rear yards?
For side and rear property lines, the general rule is a minimum of 10 feet back from the line.
Okay, 10 feet.
But, as we just discussed, for residential lots, there's that exception that lets you shrink it to a minimum of 5 feet.
Right, but that's the one that can trigger the 6-foot fence rule.
Yes, if a structure is involved.
Yep.
But the single biggest question that you have to verify is this. Are fences allowed directly on property lines at all? Or is that 5-foot minimum setback required for every single fence?
That is a monumental distinction.
It's huge.
If you're forced to set your fence back 5 feet from your rear property line on a 100-foot wide lot, you've just lost 500 square feet of your yard. Forever.
That 5-foot margin is worth serious research. And no matter where that line falls, before any post hole is dug, you must have a current survey. And you absolutely must call 811 NC 811 to mark the utilities.
That precision is just non-negotiable, especially in new developments. And that physical groundwork, that measurement expertise, is exactly why clients turn to Scott, our estimator and craftsman at Port City Fence.
Scott's team, they make sure they're working off the most precise data possible. He handles the survey review, the 811 coordination, and avoids those costly mistakes.
Right. Avoids hitting a utility line, which should stop a project cold.
And bring massive fines. It's risk mitigation in the field.
Speaking of risk, let's talk about a major one.
Yeah.
Corner lots. They're notorious for having complicated rules.
Oh, they are, because they border 2 streets. They have special setbacks from the side street right-of-way that actually change depending on your zoning district. For standard residential, it's usually 30 feet from the right-of-way.
30 feet, that's a lot.
It is. But if you're in a denser zone, like an R6, C1, or a PUD, that setback drops to 20 feet. And in the Leland Innovation District, it's down to 15 feet.
So knowing your zoning is critical.
It's the difference between placing your fence where you want it or 15 feet too far back.
But the biggest safety issue has to be that visibility triangle at the intersection itself.
Yes.
Oh.
The town regulates these visibility triangles. However, much like the finished side rule and the residential height trigger, the specific dimensions of these triangles, like say 25 by 25 feet, and any height restrictions for fences within them are not provided in the public summaries.
So you know the hazard is regulated, but the specific rule's missing. What's the worst-case scenario there? You build a 6-foot privacy fence, but it's in a triangle that requires a 3-foot fence.
The worst case is mandatory demolition and reconstruction. It's a huge liability risk, not just a fine, because you're affecting public safety. That single point is maybe the most dangerous ambiguity for a Leland homeowner.
Which puts safety first, as it should be. And speaking of safety, let's talk about pool fences, which are under that strict state building code. What are the non-negotiables there?
The fence has to be a minimum height of 48 inches above grade. You can only have a max of 2 inches of clearance at the bottom. The openings can't allow a 4-inch sphere to pass through. That's to prevent a small child from getting through.
And the gates.
And the gates. Critically, they all have to be self-closing, self-latching, and designed to open outward, away from the pool.
Okay, we've navigated a lot of complexity here. Let's wrap this up with a reality check and the final steps for you to take.
Right. First, the disclaimer. Regulations in coastal North Carolina, especially in a place growing as fast as Leland, can change. This information is based on ordinances codified through early 2025, but you must always consult the Town of Leland Planning and Inspections Department to verify everything for your specific address.
And we can't stress this enough, the dual approval system. You have to satisfy the town, and you must satisfy your HOA. They often have stricter rules on color, material, aesthetics, things the town doesn't care about, but your community manager absolutely does.
So here are the essential action items. 1, get a current survey. 2, review the town ordinance, especially that tricky section 66229.
And 3, contact planning and inspections early and often.
Yes. Planning is 910-371-3390. Inspections is 910-371-3754.
4th, get that official written HOA approval before you buy a single plank. And 5th, call 811 before you dig. It's a multi-layered process.
And that layered complexity is exactly why our clients choose Port City Fence. I mean, dealing with planners to verify missing rules, getting written HOA approval, submitting compliant site plans. It's frustrating and time-consuming.
And that's where our family-owned team becomes your greatest asset. Lisa manages all that town coordination. Scott handles the detailed planning and the craft installation. And Laura manages the office, ensuring everything is seamless. We manage the complexity so you get to enjoy the quality.
And if there's one final provocative thought to take away, it's this. The key points where the town summaries are silent. The finish side rule, the height trigger, the visibility triangle dimensions, those are not minor details. They're the regulatory landmines. Don't start digging until those questions are definitively answered in writing, because guessing wrong there means paying twice.
Navigating permits, setbacks, and HOAs doesn't have to be a solo deep dive that consumes all your free time. That's what we, your Port City Fence team, are here for.
We know the territory, the rules, and we help you build with confidence. Ready to start your Leland project?
Call us at 910-232-5453. Email portcityfence@hotmail.com or visit portcityfenceofwilmington.com to schedule your free estimate today. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.